Hello, I'm Dave Keating, and I'm here in the European Parliament in Brussels, where we are talking about youth unemployment. Specifically, we're talking about an initiative that was launched by Nestle 3 years ago in Athens, but it's actually grown into something much larger, involving more stakeholders and government partnerships. Now, the reason we're here at the European Parliament today is we're learning about what the program has achieved over the past 2 years, and we're finding out about a slew of new initiatives that it's launched. So the program is called the Alliance for Youth Initiative, and it essentially involves offering apprenticeships to young people, commitments to hire young people, and vocational training programs. Now, this is meant as a live press availability. We want to answer your questions about the initiative and also about youth employment in general and what businesses and politicians can do to try to combat it. So I'm here with 4 experts on the subject who are all very eager to take your questions. So let me start out by introducing each of them so you can start preparing your questions for them now. Now, the way to ask your questions during this live broadcast is to tweet them using the hashtag all4youth. That's with the number 4. It should be appearing on your screen right now. So, to my right, we have Luis Cantarell. He is Executive Vice President of Nestle and Head of Europe, Middle East, and North Africa region. To my left is Marianne Thiessen, the Commissioner for Employment, Social Affairs, Skills, and Labor Mobility. Then to my far right, we have Guy Ryder, Director General of the International Labour Organization. And to my far left, we have Eva Paunova, a center-right MEP from Bulgaria. Thank you all very much for joining.
Thank you.
Let's first turn to you, Mr. Cantarell. I know you can tell us a bit more about the origins first. I mean, I'd like to know, what were Nestle's motivations for launching the Nestle Needs Youth program in 2013?
Well, thank you for the question. First of all, we have a very long tradition of engaging new people for our company. In fact, you are talking to someone like me that joined the company many, many years ago as a youngster, attracted by what this company was all about. So we felt that we are already doing that. We have the tradition of engaging with youngsters, and at the same time, we were very clear that there was an issue that is still there, but at that moment in 2013 was very critical, was youth unemployment, specifically in the Southern European countries. I come from Spain. This was one of the biggest problems that we have had and we still have there. So we said, how could a company like us contribute to that? So we felt that launching an initiative that was a commitment on the basis of creating not only jobs for youngsters, but also giving them the possibility to improve their abilities to enter the new world of the work, which is apprenticeships, traineeships, was something that we should be pushing, because it's also in our own interest to have and to recruit youngsters and good people. That was the basis of that, and that's when we started. The outstanding reception that we got, not only here in Brussels, but with some MPs and different people, will push that to continue even further that, beyond that. And I said, it's not only about Nestle. At the end of the day, Nestle is just one drop in the ocean. If we can create a movement, if we can convince other companies to join us, and that was the birth of the Alliance for Youth Initiatives. At the very beginning was about talking with our partners in business to convince them about the beauty of these initiatives. I think today we have gone beyond that, and we could be very proud that in a humble way we have been helping to create that with more than 200 companies today part of these initiatives, and creating around 115,000 between jobs and apprenticeships and traineeships propositions, as well as more than 620 schemes or dual learning schemes in different parts of Europe.
And as you say, the initiative has grown quite a bit since it was launched. And so today we're hearing about some of the new things that are coming up now that it's at the 2-year mark. What are some of these new outreach initiatives that you guys are working on?
Well, I think now our main objectives to coming back here is, first of all, to say what bearing in the success of these initiatives and how this has been accepted, and the support that we have with the Commission, and specifically about Madam Thiessen on this, we are really engaged on continue pushing for that. The main focus now is what I will call is about employability. is more about the sustainability of employment. It's not only about offering jobs, which we are going to offer, but employability. And that's why we believe that dual education schemes, connecting the world of business with the world of a student, with education, talking about growing these dual schemes in different countries, like today they don't exist or they are just starting, is an important point. And that's why we as a company are going to offer the continuation of the program for the next 3 years with a similar numbers, but also specifically to try to convince even more companies, even more people to join what you may call a movement or these initiatives that today has, after 3 years, demonstrated a good success.
Commissioner Thiessen, let me turn to you. You are the European Commissioner in charge of these issues, and it was a new post in this current iteration when it was created in 2014. Now you are basically in charge of the EU Youth Employment Agenda, or steering it through. How do initiatives like this fit in with the EU's Youth Employment Agenda?
Well, let me say first that, of course, youth unemployment is in the heart of our policy. We want to create more jobs, more possibilities of traineeship, apprenticeships, also to make it, to raise employability of young people and to make the transition from the school to a job, to the real life of work, to make that more easy for young people, to give them the possibility also to have that very first work experience that they often lack. What we do in Europe, we launched in 2014 the Youth Guarantee. The Youth Guarantee is a commitment, let me say, of the member states to offer young people, after they left school or they lost a job, to within 4 months after this event, to offer them a good traineeship, an apprenticeship, a continued education or a job offer. And of course, actions like the Nestle action, Youth for Employment, they are really helping us in this, to deliver this, because we can make this framework, we can ask member states to commit to that. What we in fact do is asking member states to make the structural reforms to make that happen. But when you have the structural reforms, and we see now that many member states did huge efforts, of course we need the employer side, because without employers, without enterprises, we don't have places to offer for traineeships, we don't have places or enough places for apprenticeships, for dual learning. We need also the employer side to develop the right curricula to make the education and the skills attainment of young people more relevant for the labor market. And therefore this cooperation with the world of the entrepreneurs is really of a huge importance. What we see with the Youth Guarantee so far is, because we collected all the data a couple of months ago after 3 years' work, and what we see is that it's really paying off. We have now more than 1.5 young people less unemployed. We were able all together with many other enterprises to create 9 million offers under the Youth Guarantee, a traineeship, an apprenticeship, continued education or a job offer. And because we see it as a success, but knowing also that we are not yet there because youth unemployment with a figure of 8.8 is too high. When we see that we still have 4,125,000 young people looking for a job and not finding it, we must continue with our efforts, and I'm happy to hear that we can do that together. We from our side at the European Commission, we continue with the program, and we continue also with the funding that is supporting the program of the Youth Guarantee. And when we can continue to cooperate with the enterprises, I'm sure that we can offer a lot more to young people and make it possible that they have this very first work experience, be it by a traineeship, an apprenticeship, or a real offer. And this is what they really need to set up their feet on the ladder of the labor market.
I'm sure the initiative is very happy to hear that. Let's turn next to Guy Ryder, talking about turning from the political side to the business side. Now you are a Director General of the International Labour Organization. What would you say is the perspective of business and labour to these types of initiatives?
Very positive indeed. I mean, I think the first thing I want to say is just how important the youth unemployment question is in the world. I meet labour ministers from around the world quite regularly, and I always ask them, what's your number one problem? And 9 times out of 10, they will say it's finding jobs for our young people. Why? Because having young people unemployed on the scale they are in the world today, 71 million globally out of work, it's a massive waste of economic resources and potential. It's a massive loss of human potential. It causes a lot of misery in people's lives. It's also rather dangerous for our social stability, let's be honest about that. And I think what we're finding is, and it's come out from what Luis and the Commission have already said, is we need both public engagement through governments, and the European Youth Guarantee Scheme is a great example of things that can be done and which work, but we also need the private sector to play its role. And I must say that I find the Alliance and Nestle's lead role in it terrifically encouraging, because there's one thing which experience shows us very clearly. When we can get the proper combination of public policy and private initiative combined in a joint effort, it works. Where we have dual education apprenticeship schemes deeply embedded in national economies, it produces tremendously positive results. Look where youth unemployment is low. Those are the places where apprenticeship schemes, dual education schemes work and work well. 2 things to say about apprenticeships and dual education. The first is, these are not easy things to transplant from one country to the next, because well-functioning apprenticeship schemes are often embedded in labour market institutions, traditions, processes, which establish trust and process between employers and workers. And that's not easily transplanted from one country to the next. And I think Commissioner Tyson will confirm it's one of the challenges for the Youth Guarantee Scheme. But I think companies can be vectors of good practice. Companies which operate across national borders can help to get good practice from one place to the next. And the second point I would make is, we should not regard apprenticeships and private sector, private enterprise engagement in apprenticeships as an act of philanthropy. Where they work well, these processes are integrated in a successful business model. It's part of making your enterprise work, Luis. I don't know if you would confirm that. And that's what we have to do. And my last comment is, if you want quality apprenticeships, involve trade unions, involve employer organizations, involve social dialogue in designing them and getting them right.
Yeah, as you say, nobody likes youth unemployment. Obviously, it's a burden for employers. It's a wasted opportunity. But how do we do something about it? That's the key question. That's what we're talking about here, and that's what you guys can engage with at home with the hashtag #AllForYouth. Let's turn to Eva Paunova. Now, you're a young MEP here in the Parliament, very focused on youth issues. What would you say is the role of legislators in this process? How can legislators best engage with private sector initiatives like this one?
I think we have a twofold role. One is what we do here in the Parliament in terms of legislation, and a second one is how do we reach out to our citizens and how do we engage in projects, programs, initiatives that actually reach sooner the citizens and make their lives, more coherent, more fulfilled compared to some of the legislation we work on. Because if we look on our first, so to say, work as being elected parliamentarians here in the Parliament is to do and write legislative documents. Some of them, until they become reality and reach EU citizens, it can take 2, 3, 5, 10 years. Some of those initiatives take 6 months to produce results. And I think it's very important, and this is where I particularly see my role, is how to further promote those initiatives and build other sort of bridges and projects that are similar to these ones in order to inform society about them and to make them more engaged. So on this part, apart from successfully collaborating with the Alliance for Youth, I'm glad that there is also another initiative, the Pact for Youth, which has been also very successful, and all stakeholders here are also involved with. But in my own country, together with other MEPs, cross-party MEPs, we started an initiative called Education Bulgaria 2030. The reason why we initiated it is not just because we want to talk among each other. We brought in the business, we brought in civil society, and we want to talk how to create the right skills in order for us to be able to have youth that can find a job easier than it is right now. Because right now we do need the initiative from the business side, and I very much welcome all the businesses that are taking part in this initiative, because without them, if there's any elected politician that tells you he or she knows how to solve the unemployment problem and they have the recipe, they would probably be wrong if they would say, I personally would do it. You need to work, not just cross parties, you need to reach out to all these different stakeholders, because employment is created by the economy, by the people who make those opportunities happen for the youth. So I think, and this is where I put a lot of emphasis in my work, I think it's really important to be engaged in these initiatives and not just come to one or another meeting, but be present in your member states and inform the society about these opportunities. There's a small part of the youth population that's so-called active, and a big chunk of the young people that are not active, and they're in this so-called needs part in Europe, where they are not in education, they're not interested in doing something productive with their future. So we need to reach out to those people and tell them, hey, there's someone that wants to teach you how to write your CV. And then, maybe you can enroll into a course, and then maybe into an internship. And this is how you can reach employability one day.
Cool. Well, I want to take some of the questions you guys have been sending in out there on the internet. So we have a question for you, Mr. Cantarell. Kaylee, at Kaylee Darling on Twitter, says, this is great, this initiative, but what about retention? Companies are constantly cutting or focusing on contract jobs versus internal long-term jobs. How do you see the relationship between this problem with retention and youth employment?
Well, I think, look, first of all, a long march starts with the first step, right? So the first thing you need is to give people the opportunity to be connected to the workforce. In our case, we have engaged in the last 3 years more than 12,000 apprenticeships and trainerships. I don't have the specific figure of how many of those have been converted in a long-term contract, but I can tell you it's an important percentage. At the end of the day, you need people to work. Training them, having them, experience them, gives you the possibility also to see, so it's not only a question of just doing because you don't need it. You might not need all the ones that you give a trainership and apprenticeship, but it's clear that you need to renovate your workforce, so it's also a very good way to have them incorporated in the company. So definitely this is an important point. And I have been in some of our factories, seeing these people there and talking to them, and I can tell you one thing, it's not only about them, it's about the atmosphere that you create around. I have seen in factories dealing, and these youngsters of 16, 17, with their passion to work, to learn, the atmosphere around them, the atmosphere on the shop floor has completely changed. So I think there's plenty of initiatives, but to your question, definitely there is a path for them to be part of the workforce.
Commissioner, let me put the same question to you, because I think this goes to a larger concern about that when we create initiatives to create jobs, are they good jobs? Are they long jobs? Are they durable jobs? How does the Commission deal with this factor when it's looking at solving youth unemployment?
Well, but as far as youth unemployment concerns, the first objective is to make unemployed people employed people, to give them the opportunity to come to the labor market in the way of, I have a job, I am participating in society, I can earn my own living, I can start my life. So the first thing is give them the opportunity to enter a job. And I think therefore apprenticeship, quality apprenticeships, and I'm happy that the social partners, the European social partners, are developing a framework for a quality apprenticeship. I think this is helpful. Quality trainees, we have a framework therefore. But of course when they enter the job market, the best thing and what we all like is an open-ended contract with good pay, good salary and so on. But to start, I think the most important thing is that they have the occasion to have this first experience. This is for young people the most interesting. Having said that, we have to look at the job market and the situation of young people a little bit more than those of 25. Let me say 25 until 35. And if we then make a comparison between the situation in which young people have to work and their parents or the older generations, we see that we have a segmentation of the labor market. You have a part of the people, the employees that have good contracts, the older ones, and often the younger have part-time contracts, fixed-term contracts, atypical contracts of all kinds. And there we have to have a look at to see whether there is no abuse, let me say, that we look how we handle this to make it possible that younger generations have also prospects, that they have some security in their life, that they know that they can start building their life and that they are not depending from decisions that are taken month by month, whether they will still have a salary or not. So we are looking together with social partners how we can improve this. And this is also subject to our big reflection that we are doing on the future of work in Europe. We see that we have many atypical contracts. We have also digitalization, technology platforms, new kinds of work, and they are different from what we know from the past. And we have to see how our social principles and our social values that we adhere to in Europe, how we can still implement them in this new world of work. And we are doing an exercise of reflection with all the social partners, with other partners and stakeholders who want to come into this debate to see how we can still live those values in the future. So not stopping the new forms of work, but to see that we accompany them and that we give good social protection and good working conditions for everybody who needs this.
I want to take another question from Twitter, and it's somewhat related, so I'll put this to you, Eva. So this is a question from Flavio Shera, Tutankhamen F on Twitter. So Flavio asks, how can you give value to the apprenticeships so that they are more popular for the youth? And kind of touching on what the Commissioner was just talking about there, when we think about these apprenticeships, how do we keep youth from getting discouraged? Because you talk about getting on that first position in the labor market, just getting them in there is very important. How do we fight discouragement from young people who say the opportunities just aren't there, and even if I get an apprenticeship, it's going to be short term and nothing will happen? How do you fight that kind of pessimism?
It's probably a number of things, but I would emphasize on two, and one of them is education. And then how do we get out the enthusiasm? It's also about making sure that the environment around us is stimulating us to want to grow, that the people surrounding us, and generally before you enter the workforce, you're in an educational environment. So the teachers, the trainers, the whole society around you needs to have this positive approach in telling you there are opportunities and you can make it, you have the potential to do it. There's a number of educational systems across Europe that tell you exactly the opposite. You're a bad student, you got a bad grade, and do not measure progress in the right way. When you don't believe in yourself that you can do something, that you can achieve something, it's really difficult to change and turn around your mindset. So I think we need to invest in training of teachers. A lot of the teachers that are currently in the workforce, they would soon resign. Sorry, not resign, but they would soon retire. And so we need to make sure to make the teacher's profession attractive again. And we need to make sure that what we study at schools is actually adequate and actually creates those necessary skills for success in the 21st century. Because a lot has to do that we do not trust our skills in what we can achieve and what we can do. It is in a way transforming society, and I think it's important to have the civil organizations also working together with us on these initiatives. And it might sound far-fetched, but so far this has been the biggest problem I've seen while meeting students across countries in the past years. There's a lack of initiative, a lack of activity, a lack of belief in their own potential, that they can do things, that they can dream big, that they can achieve. We do need this sort of environment where we have a dream and we can achieve it. And we cannot put away technology and all these developments that are part of our lives. We need to understand that skills are going to be the infrastructure of the 21st century, and those necessary skills for success have to be taught, and we need to be surrounded by them.
What do you think, Guy? Do you sense the same kind of pessimism coming out of education systems?
Now, what I think is we really have to take note of is that whatever we do, whatever the signals from labour markets are, there is a high propensity for young people, and indeed their parents, to direct them towards universities and higher education than towards professional vocational education. Even if the signals are you'll make more money, you'll have a better career as a plumber or a carpenter or whatever, people still want to go and study art history or at university. This is a socially inbuilt attitude that we seem to have across different countries. That said, I think it's really, really, really important that we focus on the quality of apprenticeships. Just to say any apprenticeship will do is going to be a major mistake, because yes, people will become discouraged. And by the way, all of the statistics of non-completion of apprenticeships show that where the quality is low, young people will drop out of them. Now that also relates to your previous question, David, about retention, because there's a real problem here. I mean, in Europe, about 12% of people work on temporary contracts, short-term contracts. The figure for young people is about 1/3. So young people are concentrated in these areas. I'm a Brit, as you probably have heard. In my country, 2.5% of the private workforce are on 0-hour contracts. You know, the nec plus ultra of precariousness, if you like. Now, if you have a quality apprenticeship, it seems to me that implies that a company is investing, and investing heavily and importantly, in the skills of somebody with whom they want to work, not for 6 months, not for 1 year, but for a longer period of their professional career. So the quality of apprenticeships, as well as retaining young people, I think is one indicator of how retention can be everything we want it to be. It's not for 6 months, hopefully it's for a considerable period of one's working life.
Okay, I want to take another Twitter question here. It's a very direct question. So this is from Amelia1810 at Twitter. She asks, why can't companies not offer a job guarantee to their apprentices? And I think she means possibly before they've completed that apprenticeship. Mr. Cantarell, why not offer a blanket guarantee at the start of an apprenticeship?
Look, you need to understand that we are here to make sustainable business evolution. And what you need to make sure is that this is not about just a blank ticket, just come and then you will. You need, as you were saying, you know, these systems, that's why you cannot have too many. You need to make them sustainable, you need to make this of quality, and the quality means that there is an obligation for you as a company to develop programs that offer this quality, but you also need to make sure that the people that join the workforce, they need to have the quality that you are required. So at the end of the day, is an evolutionary program. So if you just say, okay, whatever is going to happen, you have guaranteed, I don't think this makes a lot of sense, right? Is this what is happening today in society? Do you have guarantee things? I think we just need to make sure that the guarantee is the evolutionary part. What we need to make sure is that we guarantee that this program is going to stay, that we are going to make it better, that we're going to learn about the mistakes that we have had. That's why when you have 620 different learning schemes happening, and I'm very happy that MPs and like Eva has been supporting that and going in there and seeing this, is very important in order to guarantee the sustainability. This is not exercise of marketing. This is a real commitment of companies and society. And that's why you have in this table, you know, legislative power, the executive power, you have organization, you have companies. This is a movement that you need to make sure that is well developed. And on that, you cannot give just a check like that.
I want to take in one more Twitter question before we wrap up. Very quickly, Commissioner Thiessen, do you share that sentiment about this idea of having guarantees along with apprenticeships?
I totally agree with what Mr. Cantarell said. This is not about a guarantee on a job. Nobody has a guarantee on a job to keep it for his whole life and so on. These are really exceptions, maybe in the public sector somewhere, and even then. But I think what we know about apprenticeships is that when it's happening in a good framework, that is a chance for both sides, let me say, or even for three sides. It's a chance for a win-win for the apprentice in the first place, because it's a good part of the education and skills development. And we see that when people went through this process in a successful way, that they have the biggest chance to have a good salary later and to have a job, to find a job, the job they really like. It's good for business because they have the occasion to learn, to bring the skills to the people that they need. They are looking in the labor market for certain skills. They can bring them to the people they need. And it's a chance for society, because having happy people with a job and an income is what we need. People that participate in society, also in the economic life. What we need is a good framework. And this means what Mr. Cantarell said, make sure that apprenticeships lead to a skills attainment in the end, that it can be documented, that somebody can present the skills he acquired there under these apprenticeships. That's very important. There must be a learning outcome. It's just not about working there. And if you have a combination of working and learning how you work and this skills attainment, then I think we reach the objective. And in many cases, apprenticeships are kept in the enterprise. And what I see when I am visiting enterprises that work with apprenticeships, I see very happy and proud young people on the work floor. It's almost emotional how you see that they are happy that they can do it, proud that they can work for that company, and full confidence that they are learning things they need in the rest of their working life. So I think it's a really good formula.
Well, we are out of time. I think that's an interesting place to leave it, though. Of course, people aren't owed a job in a sense, but they are, well, having a job creates a feeling of self-worth and enthusiasm, which you guys have been talking about, which you've observed. I want to thank our panelists very much for a very interesting discussion, and thank you out there for watching. I would encourage you to continue the conversation using the hashtag #AllForYouth. You guys will continue meeting today to talk about what comes next with the initiative. Definitely check out the initiative online, see what kind of opportunities there might be there for you. So thank you very much for watching today.